Hi folks, my name's Mark Richardson. I'm the Head of Funding for Learning and Insight with the National Lottery Community Fund. We're the part of the National Lottery that focuses on community. There's a clue in the name. So you'll know that there's other parts of the lottery that focus on heritage, arts, sport, but we're particularly interested in the community side of things, and that's our focus, as hopefully I'll be able to demonstrate as I go through these slides in a second. So I'm here today with my colleagues who are over there. We've got Jodie Bray and other colleagues from the Southwest team, and they're the frontline funding officers who actually make the decisions on your applications. So they're the right people to talk to about your projects, and I think Jodie's going to do a bit of a question and answer session later on to answer some of your queries. If we run to time today, I might be able to get a couple of quick questions in, but I don't want to deprive you of your break, so we'll try and stick to time. Right, so I'm going to explain a little bit about us and what's changed about our approach in recent years. I'm going to then go on to talking about who can apply for our funding, because that is a key question, and what we can fund. And then I'm going to go through the two biggest parts of our funding offer in England, which are Reaching Communities, which is our large grant scheme, and then Awards for All, which is our smaller grant scheme. And then, as I said, we may have time for a couple of quick questions. So, we're the largest single source of funding for community activities in the UK. The players of the National Lottery contribute around £30 million every week to good causes. And in the Isles of Scilly and Cornwall, we distributed 16 million through nearly 500 grants in the last 3 financial years. And we're not anticipating a reduction in that amount of distribution in the next 3 financial years. But we have changed. We launched a new strategy back in 2023, and we've been working out how exactly that applies to England. And we did a big launch of our England approach against that strategy back in November. And we've refreshed our Reaching Communities programme from this April to reflect that strategy. And we've already made changes to our Awards for All programme, so it will also reflect that strategy. And the biggest single thing that we've done, which we're going to talk about in a bit more detail, is we've introduced these 4 community missions. So we have communities coming together, we have enabling children and young people to thrive, we've got being environmentally sustainable, and we've got living healthier lives. So you will see, if you go and look on our website, that as well as Awards for All and Reaching Communities, which are open programs that you can apply to at any given time, we also run programs that have a beginning and a middle and an end, and there's a list of them there. I don't intend to go into all of those. Have a look at our website, because they do change fairly frequently. What I will say is a lot of those programs are aimed at large organisations working strategically across England, and most of the organisations that we fund and that we spend the bulk of our time working with are through Reaching Communities and Awards for All, and you know, that's why we have large regional teams, and that's why we're here today. So the focus is not going to be on this other stuff, but by all means go and have a look at it if you're interested. Think about whether it would suit yourselves, possibly in partnership with other people. So who can apply for our funding? And this has not changed. Basically, you have to have some kind of formal organisation. You have to have a written constitution. You need to have a committee. Now, obviously, if you're a registered charity, you can apply. If you're a constituted voluntary or community group, you can apply. If you're a community interest company, you can apply. You can also apply if you're a local authority, council or school, although those organisations don't receive much of our funding, and most of our money continues and will continue to go to charities and community groups. But if you're an individual or a sole trader, you can't apply to us. And if you do not have 2 independent committee members who aren't connected in any way, then unfortunately you're not going to meet our eligibility criteria. There's more details about this on our website, and you can ring our advice line and they will talk you through this, which is our national advice line that's available throughout the week. You can use our money to spend it on a vast array of different things. We can fund running costs. We can also fund your overheads. We can pay for equipment. We can pay for one-off events. We can pay for continuing events. We can pay for your staff. We can pay for training, transport, utilities, volunteer expenses, land building projects, organisational development. There's not much that we won't fund, but there are a few exceptions to what we will fund, and we have detailed those on our website. But if it's any of these broad categories, then it should be eligible for our funding. So let's go into a bit more detail about our large grant scheme. And what I will say for this is, as I said, we've refreshed it in April. It is a highly sought after funding stream with a lot of demand. We have no problems whatsoever every year spending the money because we get far more applications than we can possibly fund. So it is incredibly competitive, I'm afraid. In the past, we used to fund about 1 in 5 of people who applied to us. We don't know, under the new refresh scheme, whether that sort of success rate will continue or not, but you can assume that it will be on that order. So that means that when you apply, to go back to what the previous speaker was saying, you really have to read the guidance and try to lead with the need and try to address what we've asked, because otherwise you're very likely, unfortunately, even if you have a good project, to get an unsuccessful response from us. So it's a 2-stage process. This is for large amounts of money over £20,000, but going up into the hundreds of thousands of pounds. It's for up to 5 years of funding. It can be for a single organisation. It can be for a partnership of organisations. And you should basically think about the amount you're applying for in proportion to kind of how large you are and how much income you have at the moment. We're very unlikely to give large sums of money to brand new startup community interest companies that don't have a track record, unfortunately. And so basically we feel like to be sustainable, smaller organisations should have smaller amounts of money and kind of build their track record with us. And we will fund repeatedly. We're not a one and done funder. You can come back to us for future grants once you've gone through your existing grant, provided obviously that you delivered the project, you've got a good track record of experience, you can demonstrate the results that you got. So, and this is where we really get to the bit about reading the guidance. Our refresh priorities against our missions, which we'll talk about in a second, are we want to get more funding into places, people and communities that are experiencing poverty, disadvantage or discrimination. Now, we're talking about at least half our money going to those communities. And that's been a fact of our funding for very many years, but now we're being explicit about it, that we want to target the need. We also want to support projects that really help communities shape and influence the decisions that affect their lives. So if your application does not demonstrate how you're going to help the people in your community to have more control, to have more influence on your work, but also on the other parts of the community around themselves, then you're not likely to be successful. And then thirdly, you have to be aligned to one of our 4 community missions. So I'm now going to go into a bit more detail about each of those. So basically, we want to prioritise places with higher levels of poverty, disadvantage and discrimination. However, you know, we've worked in Cornwall for many years, and we know that there are many communities in Cornwall that suffer with higher levels of poverty, disadvantage and discrimination because we funded them and we have projects running in a lot of them. So I wouldn't necessarily see that as a barrier for yourselves. We also want to fund the communities that are least set up to help and support other people because they might be at a point in their development where they've not had a lot of funding in the past or that, you know, there isn't a lot of support for that particular community. And obviously we want to target projects that are supporting those groups within society that experience the most poverty, disadvantage and discrimination, and address the barriers for those groups participating within broader society. Our second priority is involvement. So as I said before, you need to demonstrate to us how you are meaningfully involving the community in designing, developing and delivering your project. Now, at the point where you apply to us, you could have done some of that work already. You could also be planning to do more of that work with our money. The important thing is, tell us about it. Don't assume we know. Don't assume that we can read between the lines, because we get lots of applications on a daily and weekly basis, and we really need you to tell us how that's going to occur. And how our community is going to have more real control over the things that are important to them. And are the organisations themselves being run and led by the people with some experience of the issues that you're going to help them with? Finally, our missions, as I said before, we have a broad mission about communities coming together. Some people think when they see the missions, and there's a question about our missions on our website, that you will get a better score from us if you say, oh, we're doing all the missions. It doesn't work like that. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. If you have a project which is a generic project that is targeting lots of different people within your community, then apply under communities come together. That is the one for things that are broadly based. But even with that one, make sure that you're demonstrating how you're bringing your community together, how you're involving your community, how you're making your project accessible to people who haven't been able to use it in the past. Children and young people thriving by developing their social and emotional skills is quite a broad heading under which you can apply for money to fund projects targeting children and young people, by which we mean everything from sort of prenatal, natal, very young kids, right the way through to 19-year-olds. So there's a very broad age range under that one. Enabling healthier lives by addressing health inequalities. So that's about finding what the health inequalities are and then having a plan for how you're going to address them. And then lastly, we have been for many years a big funder of environmental projects, but it's a bit of a kind of hidden secret. We've got a community, a climate action fund, which we've run for very many years, and it's put a lot of money into environment projects. We now want to broaden that out and have more of that in our responsive funding through Reaching Communities and Awards for All. And we have a target of having at least 15% of all our awards being based on environmentally focused projects. So we really want to encourage more people who have got an environment focused project to apply for our money. When you apply, you get asked 4 questions. There's a generous word limit, which we've increased recently, based on feedback from our applicants. And we're basically asking, what would you like to do? Who's going to benefit? How does your project support communities to shape those decisions? And then why are you the right organisation to do this, as opposed to the other organisation just down the road doing something similar? So that's the end of the large grants. Obviously, we're going to talk more in the question and answer session about those if you're interested in those larger awards. But we also have a very, very popular smaller grant scheme, which is now up to £20,000. And we extended that from 10,000 to 20,000, I think about 18 months ago now. That is also in high demand, but success rates in the past have been a bit higher than for reaching communities, and it's designed to be a single stage process which is easier to apply. So you can apply at any time for our small grants. You can hold up to £20,000 for up to 2 years. At the end of the period of you delivering the grant, you can come straight back in for another one. And you can have multiple repeat award for all applications, and a lot of people in Cornwall do that very successfully. However, you can only hold one grant at a time, and there is a maximum amount that you can hold within a 12-month period. We prioritise the smaller groups under Awards for All, so we're deliberately going for those organisations that are not, very well established large charities with Awards for All. It's an online application. We like to think it's quite simple. We keep asking our applicants, is it simple? They keep suggesting ways we can make it better, but we like to think that we've got a pretty good process. At the moment, it's very busy. I think the backlog is about 14 weeks from the point of application to make a decision. That tends to go up and down with time, depending on when people apply. But please bear with us if we don't come back to you straight away at the moment. We're getting through the applications as fast as we can. Again, very much similar to what I said with reaching communities. We want to fund projects that bring people together, improve the places and spaces that matter to them, that help them reach their potential, and that support them to face the demands and challenges from the current cost of living crisis that has been ongoing for a while. And we will ask you about which mission you're applying for when you apply. And as I said, if you think you're doing several missions, it's probably best to say communities come together, the community mission, because that's the broadest. 3 questions, less words. What would you like to do? How does it meet our funding needs? And how does it involve the community? So it's like a stripped down, simpler version of reaching communities. And hopefully it's easier, and hopefully, it will allow us to continue to fund more new organisations that haven't had our money before. And here's an example local project from my neck of the woods, and it's a tree nursery near St Austell, encouraging local people experiencing isolation and loneliness to engage in nature-based activities. And this goes back to what I was saying about our priority around encouraging more people to apply to us for environment-focused projects. And what I would say about the environment-focused projects is just bear in mind we are interested in communities. So we will not fund environment-focused projects for the sake of the environment and nature. We will fund them for the sake of that community, for that involvement of that community having better access to nature, that community doing something about the climate, that community having a bigger voice around its environment. So the community side of it is the angle that you need to be thinking about if you're applying to us for an environmental project. We are refreshing our approach to partnerships, which this isn't under-reaching. This is under-reaching communities, so we're flipping backwards and forwards a bit, I'm afraid. This is not part of Awards for All. But basically, what we're doing is we're introducing like another tier of partnership arrangements. If you have a partnership or you're thinking of creating a partnership, you can still apply under Reaching Communities with that partnership arrangement. We have for many years run the partnership projects that we fund side by side with single organisation projects. We have an established method and criteria for scoring them, and generally they work very, very well, and we love having partnerships come and apply to us. But we're also introducing this other tier of partnership working to have a more strategic approach with us, where we are an active partner and we as the lottery are bringing our learning, our experience and our skills to the table. And so for organisations that are operating at that more strategic level, doing things against our mission and are maybe already in an existing partnership, there will be a route through for them to have a strategic conversation with us. Again, it's one of those watch your website things. I think we've got about 10 minutes left for some questions.